Mr. Raj Joshua Thomas.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the Honourable Finance Minister for a very well thought through Budget 2022, which balances dealing with immediate needs and preparing for future challenges and opportunities. Several parts of the budget deal with developing our manpower resources to ensure we remain competitive, as well as how we can uplift our lower wage workers. My speech will centre on two key themes. First, ensuring that our workforce remains motivated and enterprising, and making sure we level up the working conditions of and opportunities for our lower wage workers. There has been an inexorable global drive by employees to seek work-life harmony. This has dominated the headlines recently. Employees, especially new job entrants and younger workers, are drawn to workplaces that offer flexible work arrangements, like work from home and compressed work weeks, and that can guarantee freedom from work considerations outside of contracted working hours. It has even been suggested in this House that we consider implementing a 4-day work week and a right to disconnect. This move to find workplaces that are more accommodative of workers' personal pursuits and aspirations has been called the Great Resignation or the Great Realignment. A 2021 Talent Trends report by Michael Page indicated that 56% of Singapore workers see themselves searching for new jobs post-pandemic. Although the statistics bear out that this may not have happened yet, it appears that the trends underlining the Great Realignment are likely to become the new norm. To give effect to such aspirations, the government has, amongst other things, introduced the Tripartite Advisory for Work-Life Harmony and instituted an Alliance for Action for Work-Life Harmony. Ma'am, I fully support these initiatives that help employers adopt good and progressive employment practices. It is, however, easier for larger corporations and those with deeper pockets to put in place work-life harmony initiatives. SMEs may need to be more creative, seeing as, and this is something that Minister Tan mentioned earlier, they have less resources and could do with experts assisting them to design and implement such measures. In this regard, I would like to suggest that Enterprise Singapore's Enterprise Development Grant include work-life harmony as a specific fundable area, so that SMEs can avail of the grant to help them formulate work-life harmony programs for their employees. Notwithstanding my support of these initiatives, I have some reservations on how we are approaching work-life harmony, and this has to do with, first, how we can continue to encourage high performance, and second, how it applies to lower wage workers. I read a recent survey by recruitment agency Randstad Singapore that showed that an equal number of respondents ranked work-life balance and attractive salary and benefits as the most important employee value proposition they looked for in an employer. In other words, employees' expectations are to find a workplace that offers both work-life balance and an attractive salary and benefits. This is, of course, aspirational, and on the face of it, it is a good aspiration. However, there will always be workers who wish to do more, to go the extra mile, and who take additional pride in their work and desire to do a good job. Sometimes, this may take them beyond their working hours. I refer to these people, ma'am, as dedicated workers. There are also workers who upend and who will buck the trend of work-life harmony, who are willing to forego their benefits and their rights. They are ambitious, driven, and committed to achieve and surpass their organization's goals. They want to do more because they want more. They are hungry, and their professional goals have become their personal goals. I refer to these people, borrowing a phrase from professional sports, as elite performers. Both these types of workers go beyond their contractual obligations, and they do so not because they are asked to or because they are pressured to. They do it out of a sense of responsibility and commitment to their job roles. They still feel that they have work-life harmony, just perhaps a different form, because work-life harmony means different things to different people. As we move towards balanced workplaces, we need to make sure that inadvertently these dedicated workers and elite performers are not discouraged from wanting to be the best. And if they wish to forego their rights and benefits, we should not judge them, dissuade them, or even worse, ridicule them. Importantly, we must not allow a culture to develop that is against hard work and hard workers. A case in point is the varied reception that Twitter's new CEO, Parag Agrawal, received when he announced that he would be taking a few weeks of paternal leave after the birth of his second child. Twitter offers its employees up to 20 weeks of paternal leave. Many applauded him, seeing his move as helping to normalize the taking of paternal leave. But there were some who questioned why he had taken only a few weeks and not the full 20 weeks he was entitled to. And others yet who criticized him when he said he would still be taking meetings while he was on leave and keeping up with the company's business. It is almost as if the responsibility and dedication to his work was being vilified. Now, to be clear, I am not saying that everyone should strive to be an elite performer. A recent article on Rice Media titled "Everyone's Progressing, but I Lack Ambition. Is That So Wrong?" carried a quote as follows: "Just because I'm not ambitious doesn't mean I'm lazy or lagging behind. I don't need a big house, for example. I don't need to travel the world too. If I'm earning enough and I'm happy, it's my choice." Ma'am, I agree with this, and indeed, it is everyone's right to make choices about how they want to live their lives and how they want to structure their relationship with their jobs. And this is equally so for elite performers and dedicated workers. But the difference may be felt ultimately in promotions and increments, and employees who decide to enjoy the fullness of their benefits should temper their expectations. This is not because they are being punished. It is because it is fair, just, and equitable to reward dedicated workers and to reward elite performers. The hard truth is that those who do more, especially if it exceeds expectations or contractual obligations, will get more. And yes, this will inevitably spark others who also want to get ahead to go the extra mile. What is important is for employers to put in place mechanisms to prevent their elite employers and dedicated workers from burning out or from suffering from mental health issues arising from work. But employers and peers should never hold them back. As regards elite performers, we must make special effort to identify, nurture, and promote them. They pull their organizations forward. In the private sector, they drive profit and growth, attract and keep clients, and they help to create more jobs. They include business leaders, entrepreneurs, admin service officers in the government, senior counsels. They include Razer CEO Tan Min Liang, Singapore's youngest self-made billionaire, who recounted at a Singapore Management University commencement ceremony that he was spurred on by his parents who told him that he needed to just go get what he wanted out of life through hard work, attention to detail, and responsibility. They include Carousel CEO Kwek Siu Rui, who has said that he had not taken a holiday in years due to his obsession with his work and with doing things well and good. For a country that has nothing but people as our resources, we need these captains of performance to continue to be motivated, to continue to push the boundaries, and ultimately to expect, see, and feel the rewards of their hard work. And while we raise awareness about the importance of balance and mental health, an extremely critical endeavor, we should not forget to concomitantly celebrate our elite performers, to fortify them, and to recognize them. This is because their successes are the successes of their organizations and ultimately of Singapore. While striving for work-life harmony, we should not lose our culture of meritocracy and our system of meritorious rewards. In this regard, I am happy to hear Minister Wong's announcement of the new Singapore Global Executive Programme, and I trust that our elite performers will be identified to be involved in it. Separately, I call on the Action for Alliance for Work-Life Harmony and TAFEP to consider how to make sure that even as we adopt work-life harmony principles as norms at our workplaces, we do not at the same time unwittingly discourage elite performers and dedicated workers from putting in hard work and effort and rising above the rest, nor should we allow a culture of complacency and adversity to work to foster because Singapore cannot afford it. I will now move on, ma'am, to my next points on lower wage workers, before which I declare my interest as President of the Security Association Singapore. The narrative on work-life harmony is weighted towards flexible work arrangements. This is more suited to office workers and those whose work can be done remotely. We need to consider the work-life harmony of employees who are in jobs that require them to be at their workplace, many of whom are essential workers like nurses, or in lower-paying jobs like bus captains, cleaners, and security officers. In particular, ma'am, I would like to raise the issue of the unearthly working hours of security officers who generally work 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. I raised this last year, but I feel compelled to raise it again this year. Security agencies, who are the employers of security officers, can only do so much to change the norm of 12-hour work shifts because, as an outsourced service, supply follows demand. Hence, if a buyer stipulates 12-hour work shifts, that is all that an agency can bid for. Most security contracts in both the private and public sector are based on 12-hour shifts. We need to seriously think about whether this pattern of work is reasonable. Put ourselves in an officer's shoes. Her shift starts at 8 a.m. If we cater 1.5 hours for her to wash up, have her breakfast, and commute to work, it means she has to wake up at 6:30 a.m. She ends her shift at 8 p.m. By the time she gets home, it is 9 p.m. and if she has young children, she has barely an hour or less of time with them before they go to sleep. After she has her dinner, spent time with her family and done some chores, she goes to bed at 12 a.m. If she needs more time for these things, she sleeps later. This routine then continues, ma'am, for the next 6 days before she has 1 day off. And this day off may well be a weekday. So, ma'am, amidst all this hullabaloo about work-life harmony, where is the work-life harmony for this security officer? Where is the work-life harmony for the 50,000 security officers who live this life right now? In fact, more than 50,000 if we consider ad hoc workers, and many of them, ma'am, older workers. So the private sector will take some convincing to move away from 12-hour shifts because it involves costs. In this regard, I would like to ask the government, as one of the largest buyers of security services, to take the lead by changing the working hours for security officers in all government tenders to 8 to 10-hour shifts. This will have a knock-on effect on the shift durations for security officers in the private sector. Achieving work-life harmony for our lower-wage workers means challenging and changing their working conditions. The chief issue in working conditions for security officers is that of unreasonable working hours. I plead, ma'am, that as we take steps towards achieving better work-life harmony generally, that our security officers, low-wage workers and older workers are not left behind. Another group that may be left out in this drive to improve working conditions and work-life harmony are workers in outsourced services. These are sectors where workers do not work at their employer's premises, but at third-party sites that the employers are contracted to supply manpower. As such, these employers do not have much control over their employees' physical working conditions. Working conditions and how these outsourced workers are treated are dictated by the service contracts between the employers and the service buyers, not their employment contracts. Outsourced workers are not even parties to these contracts and have no say in how they will be treated at their workplaces. Pursuant to the service agreements, they often face the threat of summary, immediate removal from their workplaces or discrimination, and they have no recourse nor protections under the law. This issue must be addressed urgently, as it affects a large proportion of our outsourced lower-wage workers. To address this, I call on the Ministry of Manpower to ensure that the upcoming legislation enshrining the TAFEP guidelines includes obligations on buyers of outsourced services, in that service agreements must not contain clauses that result in unfair or discriminatory working conditions for outsourced workers. This is similar to the Workplace Safety and Health Act, which imposes obligations on building owners and managing agents. If we fail to do this, ma'am, we are leaving the employment conditions of almost 100,000 outsourced workers to be subject to the whims and fancies of service buyers and managing agents without recourse. Ma'am, the current PWMs have been very successful in raising wages. And I thank the Tripartite Committee on Low-Wage Workers for their recommendations, as well as MOM and the Tripartite partners for their hard work and commitment. However, prices in the PWM outsourced sectors continue to lag wages, as Minister Wong noted in his budget speech, and the PWCS has been introduced to support businesses in the short term. But the PWCS may operate ultimately as a crutch, in which service providers use it as leverage to bid lower in upcoming tenders. The net effect is that these companies will find themselves in a similar position when the PWCS tapers off. That is, providing services at a rate that is unsustainable vis-à-vis the PWM wage increases. Furthermore, in order for companies in these sectors to meaningfully transform, including implementing work-life harmony schemes and adopting technology, they will need to earn enough to afford these measures. If prices continue to lag wages, SMEs will invariably forgo transformation initiatives for day-to-day operational needs. In this connection, I would like to ask how the Competition Act applies to the PWM outsourced sectors, given that in the outsourced services sectors, fixing wages is essentially fixing the cost of supply. On a related note, will the government consider working with the tripartite partners to set up reasonable prices that service buyers can expect to pay for each of the PWM outsourced sectors, derived from objective costs, for example, insurance and costs of replacement, so that prices can keep in tandem with wage increases? As regards the extension of the PWM to in-house cleaners, security officers, landscape workers, administrators and drivers, I would like to urge the tripartite partners to adopt a unitary PWM for the same professions, regardless of whether these workers are employed in-house or if they are outsourced workers. This is because the PWM prescribes not only wage increases, but also a skills and progression path. In-house and outsourced workers in these sectors do identical work, and differentiated wage ladders based on who their employers are, in my view, does not make sense. On a related note, the current PWM sectors tend to have a fairly large number of ad hoc or part-time workers who choose to be ad hoc workers. In fact, many of them work every day, often with the same employer, but do not take up full employment. This would appear to be antithetical to the PWM, which provides a career progression path with concomitant skills upgrading. In this regard, efforts should be made to encourage workers in these sectors to be employed full-time instead of doing jobs on an ad hoc basis. Finally, I would like to propose that SSG consider putting in place a system to recognize apprenticeships alongside the WSQ framework, because not all skills can be imparted through a classroom setting. Some skills and professions, like that of gaffers, artists, technical crew, woodworkers, and hawkers, are best acquired through a period of apprenticeship. Sir, before I end, I would just like to respond to a point that member Mr. Fahmi Aliman brought up, where he suggested that TACs be funded to employ consultants to develop outcome-based contracting guidelines. I'm happy to support what he has said, and also to inform him that for the Security Association Singapore, we have received funding from Enterprise Singapore to go beyond just creating guidelines, but to create an outcome-based tender generator and repository that will help buyers create outcome-based tenders. This will first be implemented for the security industry, but we will very soon then make it available for other industries as well. To conclude, sir, I support this budget and all it will do to help our businesses and workers. But despite our best efforts, some may still fall through the cracks. I have sought to identify some of these areas and have made suggestions as to what we could do. Together with the cooperation of the tripartite partners, I have no doubt that we will not only chart a new way forward together, but that we will also leave no one behind. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.